Hi everyone, and welcome to Novatti's webinar. Today we'll be exploring the intersection between payments, technology and security, and how companies can leverage innovative payment solutions to become truly customer-centric. My name is Zoe Teal. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager at Novatti. Joining us on the panel today will be three great speakers who I'm sure you are all looking forward to hearing from shortly. Firstly, we have Anthony Jones from Visa. Anthony heads up the innovation and partnerships team across Australia Pacific and the South Pacific. Anthony and his team are responsible for Visa's new to market partnerships, including neobanks and fintechs, as well as the client co-creation process. And next, we have Jill Berry, CEO of Adatree. Adatree specialises in consumer data rights, CDR, technology by connecting banking, finance, energy and telecommunications with open data. Their turnkey solutions ensure that organisations of all sizes and sectors are compliant to the strict CDR regulations in Australia. And from Novatti, we're joined with our very own Chief Information Security Officer, George Abrahram. George is our resident cybersecurity expert responsible for developing and implementing an enterprise-wide information security program for Novatti, having previously done this across a multitude of industries. And for our Novatti program spotlight, we are joined by Shane Marsh, CEO of Dosh, who recently launched New Zealand's first ever digital wallet in partnership with Novatti and Visa. So thanks everyone for joining today. Very excited to have a chat with you all about your respective areas. And before we kick off for our discussion today, for those listeners who are joining us for the first time, I'd like to give you a quick introduction as to who Novatti is. Novatti is a global payments company established in 1996, listed on the ASX in 2016. We provide a variety of payment solutions that include card issuing, merchant acquiring, cross-border payments, billing, banking, and alternate payments. Everything that enables you to pay and be paid from any device, anywhere. Now, given that it's almost the end of the year, who can believe it, it would be great to have some context into the world of payments, particularly for the audience members who are not from this space. So, AJ, I'm going to throw it to you. Can you give us a little bit of a summary into the key payment trends that you've seen this year?
Thanks, Zoe, and I really appreciate you having me on the webinar today. Thanks very much for that. It's been a really interesting year, and you're right, I can't believe it's already December and we're kind of looking towards the close of 2022. But what we saw in the first 6 months really was a huge amount of interest in crypto exchanges and crypto brokerages adding off-ramp capability. And what I mean by that is having a debit or a prepaid card that sits alongside the brokerage or crypto exchange account so that you can seamlessly move from your wallet of Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana and move those to fiat currency so you can tap for your groceries. So there's a real lot of interest in that, particularly during the first 6 months of 22. And then the other trend that we saw emerge during 2022 is that even more of a focus on embedded finance. And to kind of give you a glimpse of what we saw in the SMB space, or small business space, we saw platforms that don't normally have a financial or payment element. We saw them embed finance and payment as a service capabilities. So think of small businesses that want to collect payments, they want to hold funds, and they want to make payments to their suppliers. But we also saw that in the consumer realm as well. So think along the lines of earned wage access. So HR platforms, where there's the ability for an employee to draw down on earned wages maybe halfway through the month so that they can cover their bills with their own funds. So that was another embedded finance trend that we've really seen emerge during 2022. The third one is large financial institutions, including big four banks, looking towards payment as a service providers to help them get there and deliver new capabilities quickly and seamlessly, and maybe a little bit more nimble than they'd be able to do themselves on their own legacy systems. So those are the kind of the key three trends that we saw. Now, there's also a perennial one, if I may, and that's security. So every year we see this. In 2022 was no exception, was a real focus on security, cardholder data, and ensuring that you've got that good security roadmap. So that's the foundation for any good payment capability from our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, AJ. And we've certainly seen embedded finance providers leveraging cards as part of its value prop to attract new customers and retain existing customers. It's definitely what the market have been asking for. And a great point in regards to security that you touched on as well, being a focus for all companies, regardless of size and industry. And I'm looking forward to having our resident cybersecurity expert, George, have a chat to us about this a little bit more later on. Now, Jill, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Zoe.
Great to have you here. Now, open banking and CDR, absolutely hot topic for 2022. For the audience that may not be fully across open banking and consumer data right, CDR, can you please explain to us what this means?
Yeah, absolutely. The consumer data right is a regulated data sharing framework in Australia. And open banking is essentially having banking data available to be shared. What's really novel and kind of actually brave of the Australian government is other countries have open banking, like the UK, and a bunch of others are actually looking at it. But what's different about Australia is that they're not just stopping at banking, but they're going economy wide. So open energy is now live. It'll go to telco, general insurance, superannuation. So it's really supposed to impact lots of consumer data, making that sharing available. But it's a question of, well, data sharing, geez, I've been reading on the news about that. I probably don't want to be doing that now. Why would I actually want to be sharing my data? And it's really about value exchange for the customer and making or just solving some problems or like bringing some new innovations to life for them. So I like to explain this to my mother-in-law essentially. So if you're going for, or if you're looking for a mortgage right now, you're trying to refinance, you're going through a mortgage broker, what are the different ways that they can actually collect your data right now? Well, you can go online and give them PDFs of your statements. Well, that's a bit boring. Or you can go and give them your username and your password to your online banking. It's probably not a good idea. So CDR is the way that consumers can say what type of data certain accredited or regulated businesses can actually have access to. It could be account, product, transaction data, but it's for a certain specific purpose for a certain period of time. So it actually gives them the mobility of their data in a regulated framework, but having the control so they can actually do what they want with it and only give it to certain parties. So as you can imagine, there's lots of different use cases out there. Of course, looking at banking data, even simple things like account verification. So there's no rejected direct debits or viewing all your accounts in one place. But you can also, with open energy, now some of the use cases are looking at, well, how can you transition from electricity, look at your electricity usage and get an accurate estimate of solar panels and to transition to the green economy as well. So it's a lot of interesting use cases. CDR has been very hot for adoption by lots of different companies.
Fantastic. And thanks for that great explanation there, Jill. That really clears things up. And the big question that's on everyone's minds, have the recent data breaches hampered business and consumer confidence in open banking?
So I think that'll be a very big trend for businesses next year about how they handle data. But I think that for with the different breaches, it makes consumers really rethink what they're sharing with who. So with CDR, they have to comply with something called the data minimization principle. So it basically means that you can only collect data that you really need. And when you're done using it, or when the customer says, you have to delete it as well. So if anything, if you are a company, you'll be probably more attracted to that. You could do it on, could do it on your own, but as a consumer, it would definitely give you confidence that that companies are only receiving data that they need and that they're actually not just storing it in a honeypot, but they're actually deleting it and it's stored very securely. So it's definitely a conversation that's happening quite often about whether it's would make data sharing more or less attractive, but we're definitely seeing actually more companies now, like it's kind of using it as a catalyst for their strategy to get into regulated data sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves over time as well. And, open banking has obviously grown so exponentially over the last couple of years as it is. So definitely the way of the future. And I think the current climate has really highlighted that there is this need for this regulation and this tight frame of work, I guess, too. So thank you, Jill. Really great to have you here today and to learn about open banking and CDR. For myself here at the team and here at the team at Novatti, we definitely have seen an increase interest in investment into digital wallets, and more businesses are adding wallets in their offerings, driven by a surge in demand in contactless and mobile payments. And with that, we are very pleased to give the Novatti spotlight to Shane Marsh, who is the co-founder of Dosh. This year, Dosh launched their digital wallet and Visa cards in New Zealand with Novatti serving as a program. Shane, hi, it's great to have you here from across the ditch. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with Dosh and what prompted you to solve the problem in the New Zealand market?
Thanks for having me on board, Zoe, and hi everybody. So the Dosh story actually started in Singapore. I was living and working up there and in the financial services industry, and really got a close view of what was happening in a market in which there's a lot of innovation and a lot of technology interest. And we saw open banking begin to flow through. We saw real-time payments, and those mobile devices really being that point in which new services were being delivered to customers. And I was a regular user of these services. Loved the ease in which you could move money, the instant nature of that movement, and the ability to get rewarded when you were using these services. So it was 2020 and COVID had hit, and couldn't get off the island, as a lot of people couldn't move countries. And I was cooling off in the Singapore heat in the condo pool, chatting to my neighbour, James, and saying to him, heading back to New Zealand, what are you going to miss? And he said, the people, the culture, and the climate. But really going to miss some of this technology that we use, and particularly these payment apps. They have these back in New Zealand, don't they? And I said, well, no, they don't. The cyber technology is not there. There's no such thing as real-time payments. In fact, actually, New Zealand's falling behind the rest of the world in terms of payments innovation. And that really started a conversation about, well, how could we potentially do something in that space and then bring new services that perhaps are pretty commonplace around the world, but to bring those back to New Zealand and give Kiwis the opportunity to enjoy some of the financial services and innovation, ease of use, and instant nature of payments that perhaps others are enjoying around the world. So in 2021, we launched Dosh in last October, and then about a month or so ago, we added with our work through Novatti and Visa, added a debit card to our mobile wallet, which is taking off in the market.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And what do you think, what are your lessons that you've learned, I guess, for Dosh?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I was 20 years corporate career, as was my co-founder, James. Stepping out of that and into an entrepreneurial role is quite a different role, quite a different job. And I think a lot of people in big corporates sit there and wonder what it would be like to work on the other side of the fence in like a fast-growing startup. And so there's been a lot of learnings in terms of how do you bring a product like that to market, some of the key challenges, etc. But if I'd look back on it, actually one of the key learnings is I wouldn't go launching a business in the middle of COVID. Again, that was quite interesting as we sat in a lockdown state, launching a business live into the market. But also one of the learnings, and I think this is really specific for New Zealand, but there's perhaps other markets that will take this away as well, is we were really creating a category here. Digital wallets were not well known or understood. It wasn't a term that was used in the market. And the concept that you could pay in a really easy way to mobile numbers without having to swap bank accounts, the ability to move money instantly, and some of the security features you might expect. It just wasn't a topic in the market. And so what we've learned is that we're starting a new, being the first mover in a new category. There's a lot of education that's required, really kind of taking people on the journey of what these solutions are, why and then what value they can deliver to their lives should they take them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess, can you talk to us around some of the use cases that you've got and you've found for your business with Dosh? Yeah,
sure. So one of the things that we've recently launched is split bill capability. Now, split bill capability, I think, is, it's common in a lot of markets, I'm sure in Australia as well. But again, it's another category that is very new. Your service is very new. And so on a Saturday night, today in New Zealand, if you were to go to a restaurant with a group of friends, one person will pay the bill, and then they'll seek the money off those people. And assuming they haven't got cash, that's going to involve swapping bank accounts if they don't have that information available, shared already, and then a movement of that money to pay for their share of the bill. Now, in New Zealand, we don't have real-time payments, so the payments move every hour or two, Monday to Friday, and the money doesn't move at all in the weekend. So what you're going to find is that money is going to arrive, and you're going to have usage again of that money on a Monday morning. So with Dosh, you've tapped your Dosh Visa debit card, your instant notification of the payment in the app. You click on the transaction, you click split, add the people from your contact list sitting around the table, and click send. You can adjust the amounts if one person had the caviar and the other person had the lobster.
It's always
and send those out, and they can just click confirm, and you get paid back instantly. You can then use that money to go to the bar afterwards and enjoy a cocktail. So that type of concept is not something that's been possible in the market today, and so that's one of our use cases. Quick, just one other one, real-time payments. I was recently asked, New Zealand at an industry level is now looking at real-time payments in the same way as MPP has been created in Australia. And I was asking, what is the value of real-time payments? And really, the value in itself, moving money instantly, could be debated. But the real value from my perspective is in the use cases. And I'll give you an example. So on a Saturday night, you could have someone who's in a hardship position, who's at the supermarket trying to buy food for their family, and they run out of money. And today, there are services that the government puts around that in terms of advanced benefit applications or hardship payments. But literally, the government cannot get the money to that person in their time of need.
Yeah,
it's either delayed or it doesn't move at all if it's in the weekend. And so real-time payments is, well, how do you actually enable money to be at the place where it needs to be at the time that it needs to be there? And this is a real example, and challenge for people, because for this person, they can't buy food for their family. But if we put real-time payments in, they could use Dosh potentially to get that money to them. They've got their Dosh card, they buy the food, and then they can leave the supermarket. So, for me, real-time payments and the real-time payment network that Dosh has created, it really has the ability to make improvements to people's lives.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Shane. Like, it's such an extraordinary program, and you really are innovators and leaders in your field. So congratulations on the program, and looking forward to getting some more feedback later on around the trends and predictions for 2023 as well. So now I'd like to introduce George Abrahram, who I've mentioned is our CISO. Touching on AJ's points before, George, in regards to security, can you tell us a little bit about, where we're at Novatti and what's the highlight for you at the moment?
So thank you, Zoe. 2022 was a very, very tough year to be in the cybersecurity industry. I think I have aged very, very poorly in the last few months. So the trends the trends for 2022. So it's a bit of a good news, bad news situation. Okay. Globally, the bad news is we are seeing a huge increase in ransomware and extortion attempts. Okay. I was doing some reading earlier, and the stats are around 13% increase in ransomware amounts and ransomware attacks, which is bad news. Okay. The good news is we are seeing a trend towards organizations not paying ransom. We have seen it in Australia with one of the bigger breaches, but there are a lot of organizations just refusing to pay the ransom and bearing that loss. This is mainly driven out of the insurance industry, because a few years ago in the cybersecurity insurance, it was okay to pay the ransom. And now there are insurance companies that are just saying that, no, we will not cover ransomware payments. There is also a massive increase in cybersecurity regulations.
Right.
Earlier this week, the Privacy Act of Australia was updated to increase the fines. Previously, the maximum fine for a privacy breach was capped at $2.2 million.
Right.
Now, the maximum fine is either $50 million or 30% of the revenue, whichever is greater, 30% of the revenue for a year. And I feel this is going to drive cybersecurity posture for Australia across, small and medium business and also large organizations.
Yeah.
So that's the bad news. Okay. The good news is there is a lot of innovation happening in cybersecurity centered around artificial intelligence and machine learning. Okay. That trend is very good because it allows us to pick anomalies from 1 million logs, for example. Okay, that's going to make the job of a cybersecurity leader and a cybersecurity team much easier, because you invest in technology once, the technology will go and do all the smart stuff, and it's easier to find the hacks and malicious activities. Also, there is a huge cybersecurity skill shortage, okay? Right. But there is no real shortage in cybersecurity tools. People can move organizations, you invest in tools, you set it up correctly, and it just works. And the last theme is there is a massive increase in API security, which is very good because open banking, for example, one of the key things that plays off open banking is APIs. You have APIs that allow data to be transferred. So those are the three trends for 2022. And Zoe, you briefly mentioned the topic. What are we doing at Novatti for cybersecurity? We have a 3-year cybersecurity strategy that has been funded by our board. And that's endorsed by our CEO, and we have a plan to go from one maturity level to the next using the NIST framework, which is a global cybersecurity standard.
Right. Fantastic. Well, I know I certainly appreciate all that you and your team do, George, at Novatti, and keeping our customers and our customers safe as well. And goodness me, we don't want those fines, that's for sure. So I really think that those penalties, will definitely drive compliance and definitely drive adherence to regulations as well. So all good steps forward, and hopefully protecting us all as a community. So thank you very much for your time today, George. So I'd like to go over the trends and predictions for 2023. And I guess I'll start with you, AJ, if you wouldn't mind having a chat about what you think your trends and predictions are for 2023. Get your crystal balls out. I want to hear all of the good news.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. A wise man once said, only a fool willingly makes predictions about the future. That the chances of being inaccurate are far greater than the chances of being accurate. And I guess if you are rewatching this video in December 2023, you can see what a fool I am for trying to go with these predictions. But it wouldn't make a very good webinar if I didn't answer your question. So my 3 predictions from a 2023 perspective. Firstly, I think we're going to see an even greater focus on micro and small business solutions and capabilities. I already mentioned how we're starting to see that embedded finance approach, embedding small business capabilities like a transaction account and payments into platforms. But I think 2023 is going to be a lot more of a focus on tap to device. So the ability to use that supercomputer in your pocket, your mobile phone, to be able to make and receive payments as a merchant. So without the need for expensive terminals or a dongle or anything like that, but just using your standard mobile phone with an application. So software focused POS device, essentially. So that's one. The second one, and again, we've started to see this in 2022, in the second half of 22, is the return to travel. You know, we've all got this pent up demand after being locked down for such an extensive period of time to travel the world again. And even though it's super expensive to travel right now, we've started to see that movement with people looking to travel overseas, go on holidays and visit family, and also travel for work. So I think we're going to see a much greater focus on those cross-border solutions and international remittance. So we've already got the likes of Revolut and TransferWise and WireX that provide these great cross-border solutions that are very competitive when you compare them to the big banks. So I think there's going to be much more of a focus on that. We'll see those expand.
Yeah, absolutely.
The third one I'm kind of expecting is New Zealand expansion. So these are Australian companies or international companies that have landed in the Australian market. They're now looking to expand across the Tasman. So to go and knock on Shane's door and to play in the New Zealand market, I think we're going to see more and more of those capabilities crossing the ditch, as you put it before, to build out in that market. So those are kind of my three. They're probably wrong, but hopefully you're not going to watch this back in December 23 and tell me that I'm wrong, but I feel confident with at least one of them coming true.
If this is a time capsule, I feel like I'm back at primary school with the time capsule, and this is the note. It's the 2022 note instead of a handwritten note. And I'm going to watch it next year, AJ, and let's see next Christmas how close you were with your prediction.
Keep me honest.
And I'm also looking forward to getting out to New Zealand next year as well. And really, as you said, cross-promote, not just, New Zealand to Australia, but Australia to New Zealand as well. So particularly when you've got so many fintech innovators in New Zealand and so many amazing tech brains out there, it's going to be an exciting year ahead, that's for sure. Jill, I'm going to cross to you. Tell me 3 predictions for 2023.
3. I would say in relation to payments, we've seen 2022 a lot of focus on faster payments. However, they're still faster but dumb payments. I think faster but smart payments is going to be one big trend. So it's great with Pay2 or Pay Anyone. Pay2 you can essentially make a faster direct debit, but you still don't actually know what the balance of that account is. So it still gets rejected. So the way that it'll go faster, say using Pay2, but smarter using CDR, is that you can actually do a balance check or, check to see, does Anthony even own this account? Or is this account even open? So I think that moving to, I guess, a bit more insight before payments are initiated is going to be a really big trend. You can use that through CDR. I think that the second trend will be starting to look at different use cases that aren't just looking at banking data or making payments, but it's really going to be like starting to combine everything all together. We were talking with one company now that they're using the energy data, so you can switch from electricity to solar plus batteries, but they're looking at the banking data, so you can actually figure out how you can actually start to put it into your secured home loan as well. So I feel like that would be really attractive for a lot of Australians when they see 30% increases, and everyone at barbecues is like, oh, how can we move to solar? So how can it really does impact your data, your banking, all of your bills, and of course impacts your payments as well for it. And third, I think that we're going to see a lot of companies starting to, uptake in open banking. There's lots of different regulatory models. And I think that's actually going to be a really big focus for, say, mortgage brokers as well. I think this will really start to happen with action initiation, which went through Parliament yesterday. So instead of just reading data, you can actually do actions as well. So you can leverage the existing payment rails and systems, so you can start to make payments, but even open accounts, close accounts, update your personal information. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening. So my poor team with this big roadmap.
All very exciting and very, it's innovative predictions there, Jill. I'm looking forward to checking the time capsule this time next year as well and seeing how many have come to fruition as well. George, I'll go to you. What are your predictions? You've given us an overview of 2022. Talk to us about 2023 in your mind.
So 3 predictions. The first one, I think on the back of the increased regulations and increased fines, we will see an uplift in cybersecurity posture, but a drop in the number of cybersecurity breaches and ransomware attacks. However, I feel that there's a category of attacks that we call big game hunting. So these are targeted attacks that are very specialized and very customized. Right. I think there will be an increase in big game hunting attacks. And see, the fines that we have seen in Australia are generally small. I think next year we'll see some big fines that organizations have to absorb for cybersecurity breaches. Yeah. That's the bad prediction. The good prediction is I think there'll be a huge increase in security automation. Okay, so for example, we have tools that go and scan the dark web for compromised credentials. Okay, so at Novatti, it's a part of our daily checks. We have a security analyst that goes and takes a look at all these dark web forums to see if there are any Novatti credentials out there. I think the automation that will happen in that space is there'll be tools that go and scan the dark web. And if there is, for example, a Novatti credential, it will automatically go and disable the account and send a notification to the systems administrator to say that, hey, we have detected a breach credential, we have disabled your account, please speak to your systems administrator to reset. So I think there's going to be a lot of automation in cybersecurity. And the third one is a bit of George's wish list / prediction. And it's similar to George's wish list that Australia should win the World Cup. It's an outside chance. We see, I was up watching the game last night and I'm still a bit high on that win we had. We have credit card tokenization. Credit card tokenization has been in the industry for many years. I feel that the industry is going to move towards PII and KYC data tokenization. Okay, so we have standards that are not really enforced and audited. Okay, when it comes to PII and KYC information, I think the industry will move towards tokenization because there are very few companies that's going to have the appetite to pay a $50 million fine. So those are 3 predictions from cybersecurity. Over to you, Zoe.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much for that. I'd love to see what's on your Santa's wish list for this year as well, just quietly, but we'll have that chat when I'm back in the office next week. And over to you, Shane, predictions for 2023.
Yeah, so I think firstly, next year is going to be really, really tough for a lot of people. I think here about 60% of Kiwi households mortgages come off and need to be remortgaged next year for rates that could be more than double what they currently are, and people are really kind of feeling the pinch from a spend perspective. So I think for the market, that really means that people are going to be shopping around for the best value providers, and that's going to mean that those organisations who can offer great value for people and make their lives easier, particularly when it comes to spend, will be ones that will get a lot of focus, and there'll be more of an incentive for people to change as they look to kind of find the best financial service providers in market. 2, crypto. Crypto is a roller coaster ride at the best of times. I think that roller coaster is going to continue much into next year. The ripples of FTX and going through the market, and perhaps a lack of trust for what could even be some of the larger organisations in the market, is really going to, I think, make people question where they're leaving their money and the safeguards around that. And so that's going to be really interesting to see. I think crypto there's a lot of confidence building around it, which has perhaps been eroded recently. And I think that's going to take some time to come back in. And the worst thing really for 2023 would be have another company go down in the same way as FTX has recently. And 3 for me is open banking in New Zealand. It was open finance in New Zealand until about a week or so ago, when the government, off the back of some very hefty profit announcements from the Australian-owned banks in New Zealand, announced that the first industry that would be a focus is banks. So open banking is born. The CDR is now hot in discussion, and that's really going to ramp up next year. The long-held belief in New Zealand that really there's kind of 4, maybe 5 banks in the market that dominate, I think will begin to start to be questioned, and new players coming into the market to disrupt that long-held belief will start to emerge next year. It won't be delivered next year. I think that'll take some time to roll through the market, but certainly that conversation is changing quite rapidly, and some of the established positions are being questioned.
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting year ahead, isn't it? So I'm holding us to it. We're going to check this back in a year's time and see what happens. So, but thank you everyone for that. Great insights, great predictions. The crystal ball was certainly on high revs for this one. So we've got a couple of questions actually that have come through from our audience today. And actually, Jill, they're mainly for you. So they're both for you. So I'm going to read them out, and then I'm sure that you can add color to both of those. So what are some of the security risks that need to be addressed as financial institutions move towards open banking? And the second question there was, what are some of the considerations for businesses as they go to market with open banking?
Okay, so answering the first one, what are some of the security considerations for participating in open banking? So really any company that is essentially accredited or meets certain security and control requirements can actually access data. Now that's, if you're thinking about it, it's not like a small fintech from a garage. It's not any company can get access to it, because you really have to have essentially bank grade policies, procedures, and technical controls in place. You even have to look at fit and proper people. So you have to have, essentially, we've been audited. Initially, we're actually regulated by the government. There's also, civil and corporate fines that go along with it. So, along with the audits and technical controls, we initially were audited to see that we have everything in place, and now we're going through a type 2 audit to basically said, well, show me the control effectiveness. So it's actually pretty high stakes for us as an intermediary being regulated. But you know what? It should be, because there's a whole lot of companies that they said, oh, well, right now we handle financial data, but we've never actually had penetration testing, or we don't have compliance programs in place. And I think that that's actually going to go by the wayside. Especially like if I am giving my data to a company, I definitely want them to, to treat it securely, and as they should. So I think that there's it's easy to participate in the consumer data right if you're, say, already regulated like a mortgage broker, or if you have some of those really good industry practice governance, documentation and processes in place. But if you don't have any in place, then they'll just have to think about it as maturing really quickly in terms of their information security capabilities.
Yeah, great one. Thanks, Jill.
Hey, Zoe, I really like it when a fellow panelists say that, hey, we need more security, we are supporting cybersecurity. I really like it.
I think a lot of other companies need it. I definitely don't need more, but
just to add to that, see, open banking was designed with cybersecurity in mind. So security was not bolted onto a system. It was built with, hey, we want this to be a secure system. So open banking from a cybersecurity sense is a step towards the right direction.
Good to get your tick of approval there, George, that's for sure. And Jill, the second question there, I mean, you've covered a fair bit there, but what are some of the considerations for businesses as they go to market with open banking?
Yep. So I think security is, is a mandated thing that they necessarily have to think about, but realistically, they first have to really think about the value exchange. A lot of people in data or product teams get really excited about, oh, I can get my hands on all this data. It's verified, it's straight from the banks. But realistically, it comes down to customer consent. It's voluntary to share your data. And so you better give me, a damn good reason for me to actually share my data. So I think it really starts with the value proposition. What would actually convince me to share my data? And so I guess I really put them in two buckets. One smoother and smoother and smarter. One would just be just solve a problem for something that's kind of painful for me right now. Give me a better alternative. So if you said, hey, Jill, share your username and password or go get some PDFs. No, that sounds terrible. If I can do a consent in a regulated way in 20 seconds, I'm much happier. And smarter, of course, smarter propositions. It's things that actually weren't available before the consumer data right. That's why we're seeing a flurry of energy industry companies right now looking at it, because they're like, oh, before I would have just had to manually collect bills. Now I can actually get it through an API and get real time, especially from really rich data from smart meters. Yeah. So, so it really starts with the value proposition, because you can have great security practices in place, but if no one consents, then it's kind of all dead in the water.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jill. That was great and really insightful. We have another question. I think it's our last question, and I'm going to open it to the entire panel for you to come back and give us your thoughts on this. We've got a question here saying, do you see any significant macro conditions that may impact the payment landscape in ANZ, both local and global? Who'd like to kick off on that one?
Yeah, I think I partially covered this in my answer. Look, next year is going to be tougher than this year was, and I think off the back of a couple of years of COVID, no one really wanted to kind of hear that news. But how does that kind of impact payments? Yeah, potentially less spend, potentially more people looking for different and being open to different providers. People will just be watching their wallets a lot more. There's also a little bit of uncertainty, obviously, in terms of what's happening in Europe at the moment. And so, look, there's a lot that can change. As AJ mentioned, predicting the future is a bit of a fool's game. But, some of the general sense next
I think we lost the last couple of words of your last sentence there, Shane, just with the internet.
Okay, well, it wasn't good news. People are going to be doing it really tough.
Okay, well, I should have just skipped over that anyway, but thanks anyway, Shane. Any other panelists would you like to make any comments in regards to that?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how existing companies that are looking at payment innovations, how they really focus on their strategy. Whether it's creating new things, but I think that especially when everyone's really looking at cash flow funding, but realistically you can implement lots of payment innovations that will reduce your operational overhead, decrease fraud. So it's not just a cost to the business, but looking at how it can actually really impact the bottom line in a positive way as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. It could be a really good time to innovate and actually just be more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, if that's all the comments from the panel today, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us today. We absolutely love speaking with our panelists today, and I hope our guests have also enjoyed hearing from our industry leaders on their relevant topics and businesses. And I'm very pleased to have been part of showcasing some of the innovations that's taking place in the payments arena at the moment, and particularly Dosh, which is one of our clients over in New Zealand. So a big thank you to to Anthony Jones from Visa, Jill Berry from Adatree, Shane Marsh from Dosh, and George Abrahram from Novatti. And thanks to you for joining us today. We'll be sending out an email with a recording of this webinar and any resources and a short survey for your feedback and suggestions for future topics. You can also find this recording on the Novatti YouTube channel, along with a lot of other material that we have there in regards to what Novatti is up to and what we're doing lately. And there's been a lot, trust me. So as well as our previous webinars too, if you'd like to catch up on any. So from myself and the team at Novatti, I'd like to wish you all a very happy, healthy, safe, festive season and 2023. If you'd like to reach out and connect, if you've got any questions around payments or any solutions that Novatti can provide you, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or certainly zoe.teal@novatti.com. I'd be more than happy to field any questions that you've had and assist with any inquiries that you have. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of the year.